We gonna go controversial
All right,
now.
and we can't go too controversial. We don't have a whole lot of time left. But I did.
You're just gonna yell some slurs.
No, I'm not gonna yell any slurs. Okay, I did watch the Red Pill movie, which is a documentary made by a feminist about the men's rights movement. She's made documentaries about like women's causes and stuff like that. And then when she was looking for topics to do another documentary on, she kind of stumbled across the men's right movement. And if you've never heard of the men's right movement, because I talked to my girlfriend afterwards, I was like, I watched this documentary about the men's right movement. She's like, what? That's even a thing? I was like, yeah, it's a thing. And it's actually something I've followed for a while. It's not necessarily something that I'm like, super passionate about. It's not something I want to preach from the rooftops about, hey, this and this and this. But it is
You're
something
not running
that
around using hashtag Meninism.
Right. But it is something that I have looked into, I've read about, and a lot of the things I actually agree with. The name of the movie is disingenuous, though, because the Red Pill subreddit is all about, like, being an alpha male and working within the system to, better your personal life. And, their whole thing, and I've spent a lot of time on that subreddit, is, lift weights, work on your career, work on your appearance, work on your personality, and fuck lots of bitches. And don't take any shit from women. And, if you've had any conversations with me about, how I view relationships, you would see that some of that has rubbed off on me. Not all of it.
Right.
But a lot of it has. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of truth to it. Okay. But that's a whole other discussion.
That's a different conversation entirely.
The men's rights movement is all about how, you have feminists who claim that there's a wage gap. They claim that, men are oppressing them and that they are not treated equally. Well, the men's rights movement, and they talk to a lot of like writers and professors, and they talk to people on both sides of the spectrum too. They talk to the MRAs, the men's rights activists, and then they talk to the SJWs and the feminists and all that kind of stuff. But basically what it boils down to, and I'll drop some of the statistics that they show. Men are seen as expendable in our society. Men up until just recently had to, voluntarily sign up for the draft. And now I think they've introduced some kind of legislation to have women be drafted as well. I know I've read
if the draft ever comes back.
I know I've read a few articles that talk about it. Men are perceived as being the providers for women, and women are the nurturers. And, this one guy was like, it's not the patriarchy that defines gender roles. It's gender roles that defined the patriarchy. You see what, but they're like, men are more likely to be homeless. They're more likely to have, not have medical insurance. They're more likely to die on the job. They're more likely, to not go to college. They are, more likely to die in war. 95% of, or even more than that, of deaths of American soldiers since women have been allowed to serve have still been men. And women and children first on the sinking ships. He's like, men are viewed as expendable and women are valued higher in society. And it's not an anti-woman thing.
Right.
But it's all about, if we want true equality, they're saying 43% of domestic violence is against men, and there's over 2,000 domestic violence shelters and centers and treatment facilities in America, but only one will admit men, and it's surprisingly in Arkansas. And even in some of them, then they talked to this lady in the UK who started a domestic violence group, and then, the radical feminists took over and decided not to allow men, and she fought against it, and she's not even allowed in the door of her own place that she started. Prostate cancer kills people on par with breast cancer, but there's not any kind of breast cancer awareness. They talk about Boko Haram, where they kidnapped 200 girls. Well, there were stories after stories after stories of them killing and burning teenage boys alive, and it was rarely even hardly reported on. But as soon as they kidnap 200 girls, all of a sudden it's, Michelle Obama's talking about it. It's hashtag, set our girls free, all this kind of stuff. So I mean, there really is if you look at it that way, there is kind of a double standard. Women serve 60% less prison time for the same crimes as men. Okay. Women are like 80% more likely to win a custody battle than a man. Men have no reproductive rights. Really, if you get a woman pregnant, you're at her mercy. If she wants to have an abortion, you have no say in it. If she wants to have the child, you have no say in it. If she wants to give the child up for adoption, in a lot of states, you have no say in it. Men get divorce raped. Men, it talks about like this one guy, and I think it was like Utah or something, was about to go to prison for failure to pay child support that a DNA test proved wasn't even his. But you don't see people talking about these issues. And whenever they do talk about these issues, they get silenced by feminists. This guy that wrote this book called The Myth of Male Power was trying to give a speech in some university, and they protested hardcore outside.
Like the UC Berkeley.
Exactly.
Yiannopoulos
it's like
thing?
the Milo Yiannopoulos thing. They were showing a guy giving a speech at another university, and the lady outside that was leading this protest pulled the fire alarm and shut it down. So it's like we're not even allowed to even have this discussion about how hey, things maybe aren't as equal as you think they are. Maybe we aren't as privileged as you think we are. And I'm not saying that women aren't treated equally, but we're if we want true equality, it's got to be on both sides of the spectrum. You know what I'm saying?
That honestly makes a lot of sense.
Right. And at the end of the documentary, the lady even said, she's like, I no longer call myself a feminist. And it actually showed her doing these video diaries, and she was having a hard time coming to grips with the information that was being presented to her, because her whole, time from when she started being a feminist, she was all like, women are treated unequally and men run the world, and to a certain extent that is true, but at the same time we get the raw end of the deal in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you and I are white men with no children, so we get no kind of tax breaks or anything like that. So I mean, and I'm not saying that we should either, but if you want true equality, you still you need to take into account these things that are skewed in someone else's favor. You see what I'm saying?
I feel
and it seems like people on the feminist side don't even want to acknowledge that these problems exist for men.
And I do feel like that's a little bit of a generalization, because I've met with most of my actual feminist friends are true equality feminists. They're not like the man-hating third-wave feminists or whatever. They're not even the bra-burning feminists from the 70s or anything. It's like an actual equality thing. But I feel like a lot of this is information that they don't know.
Yeah, and they don't want to know it. Yeah. Because screenings of this movie have been shut down. A lot of people don't even want to talk about it. And, that's what I can't stand about the whole SJW movement, even with the Milo Yiannopoulos thing. Yeah, he's kind of a piece of shit. And I've watched a lot of his speeches, and he's kind of a piece of shit. But at the same time, to stifle someone's free speech is un-American. You know what I'm saying? So you should give these people a platform and just listen to their ideas. It showed this guy standing outside trying to get into this speech by a college, and this girl kept telling him, she's like, "You're scum. He's a rape apologist. You're scum." And he's like, "Look, I'm not on anybody's side. I just want to hear what this guy has to say." And she was just up in his face, just calling him every bad name in the book. And, and it sucks. It sucks that we're not even allowed to have that conversation.
The free exchange of information and ideas is key to humanity existing with itself.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's probably a good thing that this was made. Yeah. are definitely issues that need to be talked about.
I don't think it was. I really don't think this documentary was biased, because it talked to a lot of feminists and people that disagree with the whole men's rights movement. And I'll tell you, and I'm going to be totally honest with you, some of these guys in the MRA movement aren't doing the movement any favors.
No, of course not.
Because some of them are a little neckbeardy and all that kind of thing too. So, you got to just take it all in and make the decision for yourself. But I would challenge anybody who identifies as a feminist to watch this without, just watch it and sit quietly and watch it, and then have a conversation with a man or another feminist. Like, just have a conversation afterwards. After you've seen it, collect your thoughts, and then tell somebody what you think about this, because there are real issues that need to be brought to light. There was a dude who was in a 15-year custody battle on this documentary with his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend or whatever. And he was trying to prove that the mother was unfit. And he said the mother was obese. She wanted to make her child obese to maybe fit in better with him or something. And he's like, and you could see, because whenever he would go over there, he would just play video games and eat food. When he would come over here, he'd have well-balanced meals and we'd do like fun activities. He's like, so I started weighing my son, and you could see that every time he came from his mom's, he would weigh 3 or 4 pounds more. And then every time he left here, he would weigh like 3 or 4 pounds less than he did when he got here. And so we presented that information to the judge, and the judge's solution was that I'm not allowed to weigh my son anymore.
What the fuck?
And that's the thing. And it sucks. And there's another documentary that I would urge you to watch too. It's called Divorce Inc., about just the whole family court system and the business of being divorced. And you and I, we're both divorced. And it's luckily we didn't have any kids in the mix, because it would have been probably a lot worse for both of us.
Fucking nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah. But I strongly urge you to watch the Red Pill movie before you say, no, you're wrong, that's not how it is, women are unequal, which, like I said before, I'm not.
There are a lot of ways.
There are a lot of inequalities.
Ways that women are severely underrepresented in society. We should definitely say that. We should make sure that is apparent.
I'm not saying that there are a lot of
ways.
But at the same time, if you're going to complain about the lack of female CEOs, why are you not complaining about the lack of female ditch diggers and coal miners and roofers? And, why are you not complaining about that? Where's the equality in that? So it's definitely a controversial subject. Yeah. But it's a conversation that I think needs to be had, especially in this day and age when the whole, SJW, equal rights, social justice movement is kind of like, at a tipping point, boiling point, I guess what you want to say.
In apex. It's about to.
I mean, this isn't the civil rights movement.
Right.
Okay, that's a totally different thing. This is more of like a social justice type thing. I understand that the whole civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, all that kind of stuff was way more significant than these arguments that we're having right now. Okay, yeah. I want to get that out of the way too. But it seems like in my lifetime, this is the highest this conversation has gone as far as equality between men and women, just in my lifetime.
Yeah,
born in the 80s, folks.
I will say that I feel like a lot of the SJW sentiment that is not specifically feminist in nature is a lot about LGBT rights, which I do feel can approach the level of the civil rights movement. It's not yet, because they're not banned from going into buildings. They're not banned from using the same water fountains and stuff.
Every human being should have the same rights as every other human being.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what your color is. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what your orientation is, and it doesn't matter what your gender identity is. You should be able to enjoy the same rights as everybody else.
Exactly.
If you want to marry a dude, marry a dude. If you want to marry a girl, marry a girl.
If you don't want to marry anyone,
if you identify as a female and you want to use the women's restroom, be my guest. I don't have a problem with any of these things.
Yep.
But don't spread misinformation, and don't silence opposing viewpoints, and don't be unwilling to have that conversation
Exactly.
with somebody, because
And this applies
you might see
equally
things in a different light.
And again, this applies equally to people that are men's rights activists, though. You can't just shut them down and call them feminazis without
Right.
listening to their viewpoints, too.
Of course. But anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. It's a little long today.
A little long?
Little bit long today, but we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, thanks for listening, and thanks for watching the YouTube videos and everything. We really appreciate all that you guys do for us as far as fans go.
Yep. Like us on Facebook. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel for daily segments. Follow us on Twitter, and tune in next week for episode 27.